Hey guys, CoolCheese here, and welcome back to another mouse review. In today's review, I wanted to visit a kind of controversial mouse that it released at the end of 2023, and I got my hands on at the beginning of December. That being the Final Mouse ULX. And so this is a medium version, as well as I did get mine at the end of batch 1, so supposedly they fixed some of the issues that early batch 1 units had by the time I got mine, so I haven't had like some of the issues that I think people were reporting on initially, despite being in that same batch. So, with all of that taken care of, what do I think about this mouse? And so, as someone who used the Starlight 12 for a long time, it's probably in my top 5, if not maybe top 3 most used mice out of my almost 30 now in my collection. I definitely feel at home with the shape, but I don't think that's the biggest selling point for me for this mouse. I think there's two things you're looking at when you're trying to pick up an Ultralight X. One, obviously, is the weight. The weight is really nice, and I'm not gonna lie, I almost just want to keep going back to it just for that weight. Now, obviously, weight is not as big of a deal as people make it out to be, and shape is more important. However, I will not lie when I say that I'm not the biggest fan of the Starlight shape, despite it being something I've used a lot, but the weight almost trumps that. And so it puts it up there on one of those mice that I'm really comfortable using, and I really want to keep on using, despite not being an optimal shape for me. And so I think that is one really good thing to consider, but when you have things like the Beast X mouse also out here on the market at a similar weight for much cheaper and not as many QC issues, it's definitely kind of hard to recommend it. So the second thing I think that really sells this mouse for me would be the performance. And I'm not completely positive on this, but according to some other reviewers who have ways to test like latency and stuff, the Final Mouse ULX has the best wireless performance, at least I've felt, on a wireless mouse to date. And it's not something that's super noticeable. I think mice generally nowadays are just perform so well that realistically when I'm in game, you're not really gonna feel that performance difference. But anything you feel from a increased smoothness or an increased responsiveness from those higher polling rates comes out in the box at 1K polling on the Final Mouse ULX. And so it's just really nice to have a mouse that is at the top of the performance curve. It's similar to having Razer mice prior to this. It is placebo to a degree, but knowing that you have the best performing mouse gets that little bit of doubt in your brain out of there. I'm using the best tech, and that's definitely something not to be doubted on. And from testing, the performance on this mouse is incredible compared to the current options. Not an insane margin above our current options, but it is at the top. And so with all that being said, I think the biggest thing to mention when it comes with this is the price point. And at $190, is it really something that I, as a mouse collector or reviewer, can really recommend to the average consumer? And to be honest, no. As much as I will personally be using this a lot within my rotation, I think, maybe if there's a similar weight mouse that has a better shape that I enjoy more, that will replace this in my rotation. But I don't think that's gonna happen. But also at the same time, it's really hard to justify purchasing a mouse like this when it A is a Final Mouse and B costs that much. Now, what do I mean by being a Final Mouse? So being a Final Mouse, out the gate, this mouse isn't going to be the most premium mouse that you felt. And same thing was with the Starlight 12, and I assume that's been the case with the company as a whole for a while now, from the community sentiment, but Starlight was just my entry into Final Mice. It's just, when you get a Final Mouse in your hands, it's not some bulky or indestructible piece of equipment like you see in the likes of a Superlight. This feels super well built. This feels like a very solid product. And I can only assume with what people say about Vaxi, that Vaxi is kind of that extreme of that. And so whereas the Superlight feels super solid, feels you could I could throw this at a wall and it would still work. Final Mouse, even though it is well built for the purposes of gaming, it doesn't feel like super, super strong. Like if I really push hard, there's points on the sides where I can get some side flex. Not in points where like I'm realistically putting that much pressure in game. And even on like the top shell, you can push this in quite easily. And that's a little bit, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily feel super quality, which is definitely a downside considering how much money you are putting out to buy this mouse. Additionally, when it comes to performance, even though I was saying the performance is so good, there are other options that are obviously they perform worse, but like it really does not matter. As someone who competes within tournaments in a lot of games, the point where latency has made a huge difference, like in actual gameplay, it went away like a long time ago, and especially this last year, 2023. Performance has been like off the charts for a lot of like major mouse companies. And so there's a lot of options for pretty competitive specs, so that shouldn't really be an issue as long as you're like staying within like the norm and not going for some super like sketchy third-party mouse. And I guess finally, the thing that you might be missing out on if you're not purchasing this would be that weight range, but as we're starting to see, companies are going into that sub 40 this year. Like other companies, should I say. I guess Final Mouse already did it, and I mean Beastex did as well. Things like Sprime Gaming Gears, which also appeared like halfway through 2023, and people thought it was a scam, but it is real. And so those are getting shipped out this January, I think, from their pre-order in December, which are a bigger style mouse, but it is at 45 grams, so it'll probably feel around the same weight ratio. And so there's that. I've seen leaks of the Sora, the Ninjutsu Sora, the new version, coming in at 39 grams, which I think would feel lighter than the Final Mouse ULX medium. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe the weight ratio is still better. And I'm sure that with a lot of what Pulsar's been cooking up, that Pulsar is going to be pushing there too. And with all that being said, as much as I do enjoy this mouse, I don't really see myself using it super long term. And I don't think you, a consumer, should buy a Final Mouse ULX. Pretty much. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm going around it. I already said it. I don't recommend it. But mice are just too good nowadays to warrant spending $190 on a Final Mouse, is what it comes down to. And not that the Final Mouse Ultralight X is a bad mouse at all. That's exactly the opposite. It is fantastic, but there's also a lot of almost equally as fantastic mice in cheaper prices. I've been a really big fan of Pulsar's recent generation, and specifically things like the X2H Mini, which I made a review on as well. And I've been going back to my X2 Bruce Lee edition pretty regularly throughout the year, despite not being at my shape preference. I don't know, I think Pulsar is starting to do great things, and they're getting past those like QC issues that they've had in the past, which is awesome to see. And when you can get mice like this for only $90 to $100, it's really hard to justify spending double that for all of the issues that a Final Mouse presents itself. I just don't think it's super worth it for your wallet. And to be honest, as much as Final Mouse is awesome for pushing the industry standard forward, I think the industry as a whole does a much better job than them. So once they finally catch up, I think this mouse is going to start getting old pretty quick because, like I said, the shape isn't something that's super crazy or anything in my opinion. And once those other shapes that I enjoy more get into that weight range, I'm going to enjoy those way more than the Final Mouse ULX. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and comment, subscribe, whatever, do the YouTube stuff. But yeah, that's going to be all for me tonight. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and I will catch you later. Peace.